So we're going to talk about carbohydrates now. And so if you look at the picture, you can already see that we have bread, we have muffins, we have bagels, we have potatoes, we have noodles back here, and these are all in the, and we have potato chips up front here. These are all in the category of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are compounds composed of a ratio of 1 carbon to 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen. And you saw this when we talked about photosynthesis briefly. When you see C6H12O6, that's the same ratio, and sugars are part of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates generally have a formula of CH2O, and then you multiply this whole thing by however many numbers. So if it's 6, then it's C6H12O6, right, for glucose. And here's glucose. Here's what it actually structurally looks like. Here's sucrose. It's when you combine a glucose with, I want to say a fructose, but it's a dimer, so a disaccharide. And then if you combine a lot of little glucoses together, see each of these little blue hexagons is the glucose, and you combine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way into these formations, you can get glycogen, which is how the animal bodies store carbohydrates as energy. So the monomers of carbohydrates have a special name, and monosaccharides are the name of carbohydrates that are one unit at a time, okay? So mono, again, means one, and saccharide literally means sugar or sweet, okay? So you have one sugar at a time, and that is a monosaccharide. So the general formula of monosaccharides is the same as before, where it goes CH2O multiplied by whatever N for the whole thing. And so the most common monosaccharide is the C6H12O6, which is glucose. And right here we have glucose, we have galactose, and we have fructose, like I said earlier. And so when you combine these two, you get this sugar right here called sucrose, which is actually our common table sugar. And so these are common monosaccharides, and they are the ones that we commonly ingest, and they taste sweet to us. So these are monosaccharides. The polymers of carbohydrates are called polysaccharides, right? So many sugars. Break down poly, many, saccharides, sugars. And so they come, for example, in, when you look at plants, they come in the cell wall as the fiber, right? That's cellulose. They also come in the starch that plants store, for example, like in wheat that we use to make bread. So there are multiple versions of polysaccharides as well. So again, what is the monomer of a carbohydrate called? It is called a monosaccharide. What is the general formula for a monosaccharide? It's not CHO, remember, it's CH2O. So there's always double the amount of hydrogens. And what is the what is the polymer of a carbohydrate called? It's called a polysaccharide. So the main function of carbohydrates is that they are the main energy source of the body to gain energy. So they are our fuel. And your body always preferences carbohydrates over anything else to break down for energy. So if you eat any carbs, they're going to break that down first, and they're going to use it as fast as they can before they have to use your energy reserves, right? And you might have an idea what those energy reserves are because they're stored in your body. But carbs, you generally eat them and you break them down immediately, and then you use the energy. They also serve a function for structures. They make up the cell wall in plants, which allow them to grow tall and not to bend and break and die. So carbs are for energy and for cell walls. And specifically for energy, we want to say that they are for short-term energy. They're not long-term energy. They're not stored, right? Carbs are used immediately after they're eaten, as soon as they can be. So examples of carbohydrates would be ones that are super, super short-term that you know would be like candy, right? Sugar rushes are not real. They're kind of a myth, but your blood sugar can spike more quickly when you eat simple sugars or simple carbohydrates, right? Things that you can absorb the sugar from really quickly, like fruit and candy. There are also complex carbohydrates, which take up to a day to 2 days to even 3 days for your body to completely break down into usable energy. And those are things like starches or complex carbohydrates. So we have fiber that we can't actually break down, but animals that are herbivores like bunnies and cows can break down. But we have whole grains, we have starches, we have pastas, breads. Veggies are also actually carbohydrates. They don't belong in the other categories. They are carbohydrates because they contain plant material like starches and cellulose. And here are more pictures of these structures again. So again, when you look at them, if you counted up all of the H's and all of the C's and all of the O's, you would get that 1 C to 2 H to 1 O ratio in any carbohydrate that you looked at, okay? So the most common thing that you'll see, if you see rings, it's a carb. almost always a carb. Okay, if you see a six-sided ring, it's almost always a carb.